Only 50% of people who take the WSET Level 3 exam pass it successfully. In September 2022, I passed the WSET 3 exam with distinction, and it was really not as hard as I expected it to be. And now, I'd like to share my experience for you to know what topics you should focus on and what you can skip, what tricks nobody tells you about you can use to nail the tasting exam, and how to get a distinction grade with less than 1 month of preparation. My name is Garry and I'm a WSET 3 qualified sommelier. Let's jump right into it. The tasting part is the part where the majority of candidates fail because even if you're a professional sommelier, sometimes it can be hard to understand what WSET wants from you. I mean that the systematic approach to wines might be a bit confusing. But what if I tell you that you just can skip the half of this systematic approach and don't waste your preparation time on that? And yeah, when I studied for my exam, I just tediously learned all the systematic approach table, but actually you don't have to do it. Like at the exam, you won't get any hazy or faulty wine, so you don't have to mention that the wine in your glass is clear. Even if you do so, you won't get any points for that. The same with other observations. You can notice some deposit or tears on the glass, but you don't have to write it down in the exam sheet. Exactly the same with condition. You won't get any unclear wines on the exam, so you don't have to state that the wine is clear. And the same with mousse, like you won't get a sparkling wine to evaluate it on the exam. It will be either red or white wine. It could be like sweet or dry. It could be basically anything from any part, any region of the world, but it won't be a sparkling wine. You still probably need to know what the mousse can be like just for your background as a sommelier, but it won't help you to pass the WSET 3 tasting exam, so you can just cut corners here if you have little time left before the exam. And do you know the major shameless lie of the WSET wine lexicon? I'm talking about this prompt here, where you have the clusters of flavors and aromas and the descriptors for them. But the most shameless part about all this lexicon is written here at the bottom of the page. The WSET Level 3 wine lexicon is designed to be a prompt and a guide which you do not need to memorize, and that is a complete lie. The truth is that you have to use only the descriptors from the table above. Listen, probably you will have some wine that smells like pomelo to you. And in the wine lexicon, you don't have this word. The closest one is probably grapefruit, but it doesn't smell and taste exactly like pomelo, right? And what are the chances that to your examiner it will taste as well like pomelo and not like grapefruit, which is more common and which forms part of the SAT approved wine lexicon? Probably you got my idea, right? Even if you smell something that is not from the SAT wine lexicon in the wine, try to find the alternative among the approved descriptors. They are 100% verified, which means that you will get your points, whereas with the self-invented descriptors, you probably won't, even if they seem to you quite accurate. And by the way, if you need some help with preparation for the WSET 3 exam, recently I've launched private one-on-one coaching sessions on how to pass the WSET exam. So basically it's 1 hour Zoom call during which I'll share all my hacks and tricks on passing the WSET 3 tasting exam and will answer all your questions about it. I remember myself studying hard before the exam, and I wish I had someone who could give me this knowledge that I have now. It would take me really less time and effort to pass the exam. If you are interested, there is a link in the description down below. You can just book a call, choose a time, and we meet online and talk about the exam. As simple as that. And with the promo code WSET, you'll get 10% off the first session. The next hack is about the quantity of the descriptors. The trick is that at the WSET exam, you don't lose marks if you write some incorrect descriptors, unlike the WSET diploma exam. There, the rules are a little bit more strict. For instance, if you get a red wine at the exam which smells to you like cherry, quite common thing, right? But you have to specify what kind of cherry is that. Is it black? Is it red? And if you're not sure, you just write down both, because it's not very easy to identify the color of the cherry just by smelling it. Well, they're both cherries and the differences are really subtle. And the trick here is that by doing this, you already have descriptors from two different categories, because red cherry belongs to red fruit and black cherry belongs to black fruit, and consequently you tackle both categories. So if the wine really has only red fruit aromas, you won't lose any marks because, as I've said, at WSET level 3 you don't lose marks for incorrect descriptors. And if the wine has both red and black fruit to it, you just get more marks. And now you are closer to passing the exam with distinction. But attention, don't try to abuse this hack. You cannot just write down all the descriptors from the SAT in order to get all the possible marks. It's not that easy. The examiner will find out that you're cheating and will send your work to the main office of the WSET in London. And if they decide that you are actually cheating, they may just invalidate the results. So you'll have to retake the exam once again, paying for the re-examination and also losing the opportunity to get distinction grade, because this grade you can get only on the first attempt. So be careful about that. And okay, now we know how to get more points, but what if I tell you that you may lose all the marks just for one little mistake? And it's really so, because WSET exams are not only about wine knowledge, but also about the structure. In order to successfully pass the exam, you have to know some tricky points. Like, for instance, you must choose one option in each line. You cannot write color to be lemon to gold or gold to amber. And it may be a bit difficult because sometimes wine is really somewhere in between gold and amber, but you have to choose one answer anyway. Otherwise, you will get no points at all, and even if you are not sure about the answer, you at least have a 50% chance. And sometimes the examiners even write down two correct answers. For instance, they often do this with flavor and aroma intensity because these are hard to describe precisely. They can consider that medium is the right descriptor for the particular wine, and medium minus as well is the correct descriptor. There are not a lot of these ambiguous characteristics in the whole exam, most likely a couple of them, maybe 3 of them. It's just for you to know that sometimes 2 answers might be correct. When I was preparing for my WSET exam, I wish I knew that, because it just reduces stress so much, at least for me. Okay, probably enough about tasting. You want some hacks to pass the theory exam successfully as well? And here comes the first and the most important one. The first 76 pages of the textbook are more important than the rest of the information in it. Of course, in order to develop profound wine knowledge as a sommelier, you need to know all the peculiarities about wine regions where each grape variety is grown, but in order to pass the exam, all you need to know is the information from the first 76 pages. And be very careful about that. I've just said in order to pass the exam, not to pass with merit or to pass with distinction, but to just hit that 50% barrier and make a pass, you need to study the first 76 pages. Because in the first part, we have all the information about the basic principles of winemaking, how climatic conditions affect the grapes, the most important grape varieties and styles of wine. And in the second part, we dive even deeper into wine growing regions, countries. We are now more specific about the grape varieties and the conditions there. And in order to nail the exam with distinction, you have to know exactly all about that. This is why WSET is considered to be one of the most complicated exams in the world. And now masters of wine are rolling on the floor laughing. WSET is difficult. But anyway, if you have very little time left before the exam, I personally recommend studying that first part first in detail, and then if you have spare time, just nail the second part. The same with the day before the exam. If you have some time to revise the material, you'd better spend it on the first part, which contains the most fundamental knowledge necessary to pass the exam. It's okay if you have forgotten the difference between Greco di Tufo and Fiano di Avellino, but you don't want to forget the difference between Cabernet Sauvignon and Pinot Noir, right? And I hope that guide of mine was useful. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends who are also preparing for WSET exam. Grab that 10% off promo code for one-on-one consultation to nail your exam with distinction, and I'll see you in the next one. Good luck in your upcoming exam.